Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video we're going to be going over my results for 100 Sirus Awakener level 8 kills and the loot that came from them, and whether or not it is worth it to farm him. So let's dive straight into the results. It's been a long time coming, but finally we should have a decent idea of the drop rates of this guy on Awakener level 8, and you guys can decide whether you want to be spending your time farming him. But before we get into the loot and whether it's worth it, we have to go over the steps and really how hard it is to spawn this guy, because I think that really puts it in perspective whether or not his drops and overall how worth he is in terms of actually farming him. So unlike boss fights, which have just been added or in the past, you can't just buy something off PoE trade or anything like that. You have to spawn him and do some hard yards yourself. So to begin with, to get the maximum amount of loot, you do need Awakener level 8, and that will require you to fully socket your Atlas with 32 Watchstones. Now, a really cool tip here for people who don't have a fully awakened Atlas but have Sirus is that you can kind of cheese Awaken level 8 and upgrade Sirus at any time after you've spawned him. So after you kill all of the 4 Conquerors and you have wiped them off of the Atlas, and Zana tells you that you can now travel to Sirus's Citadel, and you open up your Atlas and you can see the Sirus Citadel in the center, you can actually snapshot that and adjust the difficulty accordingly after all the Conquerors have been defeated. So let's say you're on Awakening level 7, you can crank that up to 8 by putting in a few more Watchstones and have Sirus level 8 and have him drop the maximum amount of loot. In addition to this, if you haven't gotten all your Watchstones yet, you can actually buy Ivory Watchstones and socket those into the Atlas as well to get Sirus up to Awakening level 8, and then of course unsocket those Ivories later. Maybe you can sell them again if you want, or maybe you can use them again next time you get Sirus, but that will ensure you're getting the maximum amount of loot from your Sirus attempts, as of course he does take quite a long time to spawn. So in my experience, I spawned around 30 to 40 of the Siruses that I have slain, so over 100. The rest were carries of people who told me specifically they had level 8, and I tested it as well. So you can pretty much guarantee that all these results are level 8. But in terms of spawning it, I would say it took around 60 to 100 maps per Sirus spawn, and I feel like there is quite a lot of variance there. I kind of believe that there are a few bugs with spawning Sirus right now, and the Conquerors for that matter. Sometimes it can take like 1 map, sometimes it can take like 10, 20, even 30 maps to spawn in one of the Conquerors, so it definitely does feel a bit weird. But if you're having that trouble, there are a few workarounds. You can go ahead and use some Sextants or try out a Betrayal mission. I have heard and tried that those do work, so you can try that out. But with all that out of the way, so you're going to probably get on average 60 to 100 maps. We're going to go 60 for this video. It's going to be how long it takes to crack open a Sirus encounter. So overall, to farm these by yourself, you would have had to run around 6,000 maps. Now that is a lot of maps, and it's definitely going to reflect like how kind of like insane the loot is, but it's definitely like, it's no normal player is going to run 6,000 maps in any short amount of time. Like most people don't even run 6,000 maps in a league. So of course for this loot you're going to have to kind of take that into consideration here. So when you're kind of looking at it, you might be like, oh, that's insane, but you also have to consider that are you going to run those 6,000 maps? Maybe, maybe not, who knows. So let's get into the loot now and talk about whether or not it is worth it to farm this guy. So straight off the bat, let's get into his drop table at Awakener level 8, and we'll break it down for you. So Sirus at Awakener level 8, 100% chance drops a unique every single time. He's not going to like give you nothing, he's not going to like give you like kind of like anything like that. He's always going to drop a unique, and if he doesn't, that means it wasn't on Awakener level 8. I've talked to plenty of other people who have killed upwards of 100 Siruses, and this is also their experience, and we're going to be referencing their experiences as well as mine throughout this video. So to begin with, let's go through the actual unique drops. So Sirus can drop Crown of the Inward Eye, which is the helmet with transfiguration of all of the mind, you know, body and all that kind of stuff like that. He can drop Hands of the High Templar, which are the gloves which you can vial multiple times, which is pretty cool. He can also drop the Savior, which is the Mirror Tear Sword, which is currently worth around 20 exalts. And then he can also drop a jewel called Thread of Hope, which is basically just Intuitive Leap, 2.0 or 3.0, whatever you want to call it. Basically lets you spec into nodes around the tree without having to connect to it. Now, only 2 of these drops are really worth any significant amount of currency, and that is the Hands of the High Templar and the Savior. And you can notice here that I did actually get quite a lot of the Hands of the High Templar, but I only got 1 Savior. Over 100 kills, equivalent to 6,000 maps, if you want to use that statistic. I got 1 Savior, so it is rare. Very, very rare indeed, but we'll get into that in just a second. So in terms of the value of these items, Crown of the Inward Eye is pretty much worthless, and that kind of makes sense. It's the similar kind of case of like the Shaper gloves, the boots, kind of that kind of drop. It's very, very common, and it's the main drop that you'll be getting from Sirus. If you're kind of just killing him one off, you can pretty much expect to get the helmet. So definitely a very common drop. If I had to guess the actual drop chance of this, I would say it's probably in the ballpark of around 50% of Sirus's will drop the helmet. Next up, we obviously have the gloves, which we just talked about. These demand quite a higher price, as they can actually be quite powerful. Having 5 corruptions on them, they can have like triple curse on hit, they can have like double like crit on it and stuff like that, which is quite incredible, and it will be very, very good. And the additional thing here to prop up the price is that it is a gamble based item, so you can kind of corrupt it twice, and then on the third one it can brick, but you can get it all the way up to 5, but that's quite rare. So there is kind of like almost an artificial scarcity placed on this item, due to the fact that everyone who gets them will corrupt them, and that kind of pulls a lot of them out of the marketplace and means that there will be a high demand for this item. So it's pretty good, and then also a lot of them being taken out of the market, meaning this item should kind of maintain its price, we hope. So the next one up is obviously the Savior. A lot of people have been heralding this sword as a better than mirror tier item, kind of like on a completely new level, the best in slot for melee, all that kind of stuff like that. I don't really have an opinion on that. I don't play melee characters, but if people are saying it's that good, then it probably deserves some of the hype, which is pretty good. So it definitely does demand such a massive price tag. So it's a very good item, but then on top of that, it's extremely rare, like phenomenally rare, like 1 in 100 runs. Now to back up this info a little bit, I have spoken to other people who have done hundreds of Siruses overall, like so between them, and they can kind of like confirm that it is very, very rare. Maybe not as rare as my results indicate, but if I had to guess about the drop rate, it would probably be about in the 5% ballpark, similar to Starforge and Solstice Vigil. It's on that level of rarity. So if you do 100, you could get 0, you could get 5, you could get 6 or 7, you know, that kind of, that's what you're expecting to see overall. And I think if you did like run enough of them, it would probably work out to around 5%. Which is pretty interesting. And if I had to take a guess at the Hands of the High Templar, I'd probably say it's in the 35% drop range, just from what I have talked to other people about, and kind of like all that kind of stuff like that. It's definitely rarer than the helmet, but more common than the jewel. So up to the jewel now, I believe that this jewel is actually kind of like, it's got a lot of potential. I think once a build figures out where it's going to use it or why it would use it, it will come up in price a little bit. It's very, very powerful. Back in the day, Intuitive Leap, which lets you allocate skill points around the tree, was very, very powerful. A lot of kind of builds did use it to save a lot of points, so I don't see why this would be any different. Just no one's had a need for it yet, so definitely pretty cool and interesting there. So overall for the drops, I'd say that the jewel has about a 15% chance to drop. So of course we have a pretty interesting breakdown here, probably a 15 to 10% actually. I don't know, it's definitely difficult to say with all of these items, because obviously you can get very lucky, you can get very unlucky, and all that kind of stuff like that. But pretty interesting indeed. So it's a pretty interesting breakdown. The helmet's gonna like basically be nothing. The gloves, for a time being, will be worth something. The jewel, as soon as it finds a home, probably will be worth something as well, especially if you get the massive roll. And then of course the sword will always be kind of like demanding that premium, similar to Starforge back in the day. So that's the uniques, and that's kind of what you can expect. Let's move on to Watchstones now. So one of the other things that you guys need to know about Sirus is that he has 4 separate loot table kind of drops. So he can drop a unique, he can drop a Awakener's Orb, he can drop a Watchstone, and he can drop an Awaken skill gem. And he can drop all 4 of these at once. So you can get the quad drop, which is pretty damn cool. So that would be giving you a unique, a Watchstone, Awakener's Orb, and a skill gem. You can get 1 unique, you can get like it's basically 1 unique, and then any of the others, any combination of the others. I've had 3, 2, you know, all of the numbers, including 4. So pretty interesting indeed. So let's get into watchstones now. So there is 7 different types of watchstones, and you'll notice here that they do have different kinds of rarity attached to them, which is pretty interesting indeed. Of course, that is pretty cool. Now let's quickly get into the drop rate of watchstones. So in my experience, you can see here, it's around a 50% chance to drop. So you have a 50% chance to get no watchstone and 50% chance to get one. And that does seem consistent with other people that I've talked to at Awakening level 8. Of course, if you're on lower Awakening levels, things may vary. But it's kind of interesting within that is that obviously we have different drop chances on the watchstones themselves. So we can see here the worst ones are definitely Irresistible Temptation and Territories Unknown. So these 2 watchstones add affixes to your maps for their duration. So an Ivory Watchstone, if you're not familiar, is actually a special watchstone that you can put in your atlas, and it will exist in the watchtower for however many charges are on it. So 18 charges means you'll have 18 uses on it, 18 maps of an additional random prefix, which is pretty interesting. It can be quite powerful. It adds additional pack size, rarity, and quantity to the map, but it also does make things harder. One thing of note here though is with Irresistible Temptation, obviously Reflect is a prefix, so you can add Reflect randomly onto your maps and in some cases break them. So definitely this is the worst watchstone overall due to that fact. This one is not too bad as it is a suffix, and we'll kind of get into the rest now. So now you guys know how watchstones work and what they look like. So you can see here that the additional affix ones are the most common. We got 15 of each of those out of our 56 that we got. So definitely pretty interesting here overall. Next up, we have the next ones, which are Booming Populace and War Among the Stars. So War Among the Stars basically adds in 5 to 7 additional Shaper and Elder packs each. And these Shaper and Elder packs are quite powerful. For those of you guys who remember Null Portals, this watchstone actually adds in Null Portals as well as like the Shaper Robots and the Shaper Clone guys. So definitely very good, and those monsters drop their specific influence types. So you can get a ton of Elder and Shaper items this way, and it's very, very powerful indeed. So as a result, it does have a bit of a higher price tag. I believe it's around 15 chaos versus like the 10 or like 12, yeah, for this one. But overall, it's actually pretty cheap as well, which is quite surprising. And all these prices are taking into account maximum charges, so it's no one undercutting with just one charge. So definitely pretty interesting. The next one here is Booming Populace. So Booming Populace adds, I think it's anywhere between 10 to 20% pack size to the map, and this one is currently worth 12 chaos, and it's kind of like on the next tier of a rarity here. You can see here these 2 are similar kind of rarity, it seems, by my results. Definitely pretty interesting. But Booming Populace adds that pack size. Now the catch with Booming Populace is that I believe it's actually bugged. I've used quite a few Booming Populaces on my own maps, and I've never actually seen the tooltip of pack size be affected by the watchstone itself. It consumes the charge and all that kind of stuff, but it just doesn't add the pack size. So I think that's why it's kind of like price is so low. Otherwise it would be higher, I think. So yeah, that one's bugged. I'm not sure if that's a known issue or anything like that. So yeah, definitely pretty interesting. And the final 3 here that we're going to talk about are the big ones, the big sought after ones, and the ones that everyone's buzzing about. And these ones are Terror, Stalwart Defenders, and Misinformation. So we're going to talk about Terror and Stalwart Defenders first. So Terror basically adds +1 level to the area zone and makes stuff harder. I think it's monster life or monster damage. Stalwart Defenders is same thing, +1 to the level of the zone, and then I think it's the monster life one. So those 2 between them can allow you to get tier 18 maps, which is definitely very, very powerful, not only for XP, but also for base item drops. So at that point, you can make the zone item level 85, which means that all rare monsters will drop item level 86 bases. Combined with War Among the Stars, you can get a lot of I-86 Elder and Shaper bases, which can sell for quite a lot of currency indeed, especially stuff like Astral Plates. So pretty cool there. But the last one here is Misinformation, and over all the runs, I actually only got 1 Misinformation. So it's pretty damn rare overall. I'm not sure if this is RNG or anything like that. I don't have anyone else who recorded their watchstone drops, so it's just me. But yeah, that's definitely very, very uncommon. However, this is by far the most powerful watchstone of them all, and I can tell you exactly why that is. So misinformation, similar to stalwart defenders and stuff like that, adds 1 level to the area of the monsters, the monsters in the area, which is quite powerful, but it also mimics the awakening level bonus. And what I mean by that is you see this 24% increased effect of modifiers on maps. That is the same effect that is on misinformation. I believe it's 30% though. It could be 20 or 30, I can't quite remember off the top of my head. So basically that bonus is going to further multiply stuff like Beyond, you know, like the additional rare monsters, all that kind of stuff will be further multiplied, and you'll get, I think, up to 50 to 60% more map modifiers, meaning you get like the effective like triple or like quadruple Beyond from all that multiplying, and it gets completely insane. Not only that, but it also does add that plus level. So that's why it demands such a steep price tag and why it is so rare. And if you're chasing 86 bases, if you put in all 3 of the plus level ones, you can just get every monster to drop 86, which is completely insane. So with all that said, those are the watchstones. Obviously it's got a 50% chance to drop, but then within that 50%, you obviously do have a different breakdown of a loot table here, as you can quite clearly see. The better the watchstone, the rarer it seems to get, conveniently, but that's just how it is. Okay, so the Awakener's Orb is up next. So overall my runs, I got 20 Awakener's Orbs, which is actually a pretty respectable amount in my opinion. Compared to stuff like the Hunter's Exalted Orb, which I'll have information on later, it is actually far more common than any of those Conqueror Orbs. So it's definitely the more easy one to get. Actually, I would say it's definitely overall should be more common than the Orbs from the Conquerors, just as a matter of course, because it has a higher drop chance. So definitely pretty interesting indeed. 20 of those, not much more to say about that. Next, let's talk about Awaken skill gems. So this is the big money spinner for Sirus. This is the chase item, this is the Watcher's Eye, basically the big daddy drop. This is what you're looking for, and this is what's going to make it really worth it to go after him. So overall, I got 29 Awaken skill gems from my run, so that's a pretty nice drop chance. If someone had to ask me to guess, I'd say it's about a 25% chance to drop, 1 in 4 from asking other people. That seems pretty consistent. They're definitely not rare. If you do run enough Siruses, you will get quite a lot of these. They just do drop a lot. So yeah, of course, that is the drop chance. If you want to compare it to something, it's more common than a Dying Sun off Shaper. So if you've ever farmed Shaper, that's kind of what you can expect. So overall though, we also have a drop table within the watch, within like the kind of Awakened skill gems here. You can see I've recorded what I got. Some of these are more common than others at 4 and 4 and stuff like that. Definitely pretty suspicious. And then obviously I have gotten some which I just haven't gotten, like Chain, GMP, stuff like that. Which conveniently were the good ones, but overall there is actually 35 Awakened skill gems, so without running hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Siruses, you couldn't actually tell if it is random or not. Overall, I don't feel like there's any specific ones which came up a lot. Like I didn't get like 10 of one or anything like that, so that leads me to believe that it is actually truly random, and I believe that is currently the case, because melee physical damage is definitely one of the most powerful ones. It gives you Intimidate, it gives you more melee damage, and it's just kind of overall insane. But I got 4 of them, so that's definitely pretty interesting there indeed. And I also got stuff like Spell Echo. I got 2 of those, and that's also one of the more insane ones. So yeah, overall I believe that the chance to drop an Awakened gem in terms of the actual which one you get is random. So definitely pretty interesting there, and it's got a very good drop chance, so you could just roll up and get like an Awakened chain off of your first Sirus, which is pretty cool in my opinion. So with all that said, let's get into the financials. Is this guy worth it? Is he worth to run at Awakening level 8? Is it worth it to take your time and kind of like buy a carry, or, you know, do any of that kind of stuff like that? Let's get into the numbers to answer that. So overall, for the uniques, this is not going to be what's going to incentivize you to go for Sirus. So in terms of the actual drop rate of the sword, you may as well ignore it. It's that rare. It's not going to make up much of your currency overall. You could basically do 100 and get 0. You know, it's the same with Starforge. It's not something you should consider when you're going to farm him, as you're not going to get enough of them to kind of like justify factoring that in, especially if you're not an insane hardcore gamer. If you're just going to kill 5 Siruses, this isn't going to impact your decision at all. The chance that you get the sword is very, very slim, and yeah, you shouldn't worry too much about the sword. Overall though, we can see here that the gloves are a nice bit of currency indeed, and we can kind of like factor that in, and if you do get the gloves, it's going to be a nice 60 to 70C hit, and you're going to feel pretty good about that. So definitely pretty cool. But you know, overall the uniques aren't something that you're going to want to be worrying about too much. What you're really chasing is what's coming up next, and that is Awaken skill gems. You can see here I get 17,000 chaos from Awaken skill gems overall, which is pretty cool indeed. And this is where all the money from the actual kills will come from. Obviously that's a lot of currency. It makes up the bulk, over half of the actual currency overall, which is pretty insane considering we're factoring in stuff like Watchstones and Awakener orbs. So this is definitely where you're looking to make your currency for. So if you're just like kind of like a normal gamer, you can pretty much expect to get an Awakened gem from 5 or 6 kills, and that could earn you a nice big paycheck, whether that's 10 exalts, 5 exalts, like 1 exalt. You can kind of expect to get that eventually, which is quite cool, and you can kind of factor that in when you're thinking whether you should farm Sirus. This is going to be happening eventually, and it's more common than the Watcher's Eye, in my opinion. So definitely pretty cool. You also have the Watchstones and the Awakener's Orb here, which will be kind of really nice. The Watchstones aren't worth much yet. That may change as people kind of learn how to use them more, but those do kind of offer a little bit of a token currency there. Obviously some of them are worth a lot more than others, with misinformation being 150 chaos, but you can kind of like get a few chaos there, here and there, or you can choose to use them yourself, which is pretty cool. But again, similar to the uniques, you're not going to be basing your decision whether you're farming Sirus based on Watchstone prices at the current time. So it's really going to be down to the Awakener's Orb and the Awakened skill gems. So overall, these are going to dictate whether you're farming them. The price of these is always probably going to be very high. The Awakener's Orb is the most powerful crafting currency in the game currently, in my opinion, and it will always deserve either the current price tag or higher, I would say. I don't see it dipping below the price of an Exalt anytime or ever, so definitely pretty cool there. So overall, is it worth to farm Sirus? If you're planning to kill 5+ Siruses, or maybe, you know, in the 10 range, I think it's absolutely worth it to kind of go for that and get that into your farming kind of like session there. Once they fix Conquerors and the fact that you can't sextant while you're doing them, this is going to be a massive money gain. Over 100 runs, I made 231 exalts. That's well and truly over a mirror if everything's sold at current market prices. So definitely completely insane. If you're a chain mapper, you should be looking to work in Sirus to your kind of like your mapping schedule. He is completely insane for income, and he works out to be about 4.5 chaos per map over 6,000 maps. So definitely completely insane, and even if I take out the sword, it's still quite a nice profit. You don't have to rely on 1% chance drops, and because of that, I believe he's actually quite a nice boss, and the drop table is very respectable. With that said, hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. It's been quite a long one here, but Sirus is of course the new ultimate endgame, so we had to give him all the time he's worth. So overall, try and spawn those Siruses, and make sure you're looking into the future and sextoning up those Conquerors and kind of working that into your mapping strategy. It's well worth the time, and you're probably going to get some multi-exalt paydays as long as you can do it yourself. In terms of the actual carries though, I do have to add here on the end, as I know a lot of people are paying quite a lot for these carries. If you do decide to pay for carries, I wouldn't expect to pay more than an Exalt. That is quite a steep price, and overall if you're not doing a massive sample size or farming a lot of maps, that may actually not be worth it for you. So in my opinion, you should go at this yourself, try and take him down solo, or get in a friend who can help you for free, as those steep price tags might cut into your profitability and might even lead you into the red if you get unlucky with your Awakened skill gems. So that's all I got for you guys. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you guys real soon in the next one for plenty of more Conquerors details. The spreadsheet will be in the description. I'll see you guys then.